Hospitals are meant to save lives, but some become something else. Some are filled with pain, death, and dark secrets. These hospitals were so haunted, so dangerous. They were shut down, and now no one is allowed to enter. But today, I'll take you inside. Are you ready? Erstens Belitz Heilstätten Hospital, Germany. The ghost doctors still want to operate. Far away from the city of Berlin, in the middle of a dark forest, stands a giant old hospital. It's called Belitz Heilstätten. From the outside, it looks like a castle, but inside, it's a place of nightmares. More than 100 years ago, this hospital was built for people who had a deadly disease called tuberculosis. Later, during World War I and World War II, it became a hospital for soldiers. Even Adolf Hitler was treated here when he was shot in the leg. But after the war, something strange began to happen. Patients started going missing. Doctors would hear people whispering in empty rooms. Some nurses said they saw old hospital beds move by themselves. In 2008, a man named Christoph, who was a photographer, visited the hospital with a young woman. They wanted to take some spooky pictures for fun. Hours later, people found Christoph's body. He was dead. But it wasn't just that he was killed. His body was cut open, like someone had done surgery on him. His heart and lungs were taken out and placed next to him, like a science experiment. The girl with him? She vanished and was never found. Police looked everywhere but never found who did it. Some people say it wasn't a person at all, but something that lives in the hospital. Now, the hospital is closed and locked, but thrill seekers still sneak inside. Those who go in say they hear old machines turning on. They feel cold hands on their necks, and some see a man in a bloody doctor's coat holding a scalpel walking toward them. If you go near the hospital at night, you can still hear someone whispering, "Scalpel, forceps, don't move." Locals say the doctors are still working, but now their patients are already dead. 2. Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital, South Korea. Or once you go in, something follows you out. Hidden in the trees of Gwangju, South Korea, there is an abandoned mental hospital called Gonjiam. This place is so scary that the government has sealed the doors shut. It was once used to treat people with mental illness, but something terrible happened here. Years ago, patients inside started dying for no reason. No one knew why. Some said it was because of dirty water or bad food. But soon, the real story came out. The head doctor had gone completely mad. He locked patients in their rooms, even when they screamed. People believe he started doing dark experiments on them, cutting them open, giving them pain, and drawing strange symbols on their skin. One nurse ran away and told the police, "The hospital is not just sick, it's cursed. I hear voices at night, and the doctor talks to someone I can't see." After that, the hospital was shut down overnight. No warning, no goodbye. Patients were left behind. Staff disappeared. The hospital was left frozen in time, papers still on desks, food still on plates. But the horror didn't stop. Ghost hunters who entered say their flashlights turn off by themselves. Cameras don't work inside, and sometimes you hear screaming from the upper floor, even though it's empty. In 2018, a group of YouTubers decided to explore the hospital live on camera. At first, it was quiet. They laughed, joked, and showed the dark hallways. Then, suddenly, the camera dropped. There was a loud scream. The screen went black. One of the boys was found hours later, crying in a corner, scratching the wall with his nails. His nails were bleeding. He had written the same word again and again on the wall. "Run, run, run!" No one knows what happened that night. The other members of the group left YouTube forever. Now, the building is locked, but locals say if you stand near it at 3 a.m., you'll hear the sound of someone banging on the windows, begging to be let out. But there's no one inside. Is there? 3. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, USA. And the Tunnel of the Dead still echoes. On a lonely hill in Kentucky, USA, stands a huge, broken-down building. It looks like a prison, but it was once a hospital called Waverly Hills Sanatorium. This place was made to treat people with a deadly disease called tuberculosis in the early 1900s. At that time, there was no cure. People were coughing blood, their lungs were filling with liquid, and they were dying slowly. The hospital filled up fast. Room after room was packed with dying patients. Some were even children. The doctors tried everything: sunlight therapy, cold air, even cutting open people's chests to help them breathe. Most of it didn't work. Over 60,000 people died here. And here's the darkest part. The hospital had a secret tunnel underground. They called it the body chute. It was a long, dark hallway where dead bodies were rolled down on carts so the other patients wouldn't see them. The doctors didn't want anyone to know how many were dying. But over time, the tunnel itself became cursed. Today, people say that if you walk through that tunnel, you hear carts rolling, even though the wheels are gone. Some say they feel someone brushing past them in the dark, someone ice cold. One visitor went in and said he heard a voice whisper, "It's your turn now." He ran out and never came back. But there's more. People who visit the hospital today have seen a little boy named Timmy. He rolls a leather ball across the hallway. If you throw it back, he throws it again. But you can't see him, just the ball, moving by itself. There's also something else inside. A black shadow. They call it the creeper. It crawls along the ceiling like a spider and drops down behind people. Some have fainted after seeing it. Others leave screaming. Security guards refuse to work after dark, and tourists are only allowed inside during the day, because when night falls, the dead wake up. And that tunnel, it still waits for more bodies. Where the walls still scream? In the countryside of East Sussex, England, there once stood a grand old building called Hellingley Hospital. From outside, it looked beautiful, like a giant mansion, but inside it was a prison of pain. This hospital was built in 1903 for people with mental illnesses, but the treatment here was not healing. It was torture. Patients were locked alone in dark rooms. Some were tied to chairs for days. Others were forced to take electric shocks. Many never saw their families again. Over the years, people started to say the hospital was cursed. Doctors reported seeing shadows moving past doors. Nurses heard crying from empty rooms. One cleaner quit her job after she saw a man with no face standing in the mirror behind her. Even after the hospital closed in 1994, the spirits didn't leave. One night, a group of teens broke in for fun. They laughed, explored, and took pictures. But one girl saw a figure at the end of the hallway, walking slowly. It wore a white hospital gown and had bloody feet. She screamed and ran, but the doors wouldn't open. When they finally escaped, she had scratches all over her back. But no one had touched her. Locals say if you go near the old building, you can still hear doors slamming and people begging, "Let me out, please." The government tried to rebuild the place. But every time they started work, accidents happened. Tools went missing, workers got hurt, and one man fell from the roof. He said something pushed him. Now, no one tries to fix it anymore, because some buildings are better left dead. The spirits of war never left. In Singapore, not far from the busy city, there's an abandoned hospital that locals call the most haunted place in the country. It's known as Old Changi Hospital. It was built in the 1930s and used by the British. But during World War II, it was taken over by Japanese soldiers. And that's when the horror began. This hospital turned into a torture center. Soldiers beat, burned, and cut prisoners alive in the basement. Some were starved to death, others were never found again. Even after the war ended, people reported strange things. Doctors heard someone whispering their names in the hallways. Nurses saw lights flicker without power, and patients complained of a man in uniform watching them while they slept. When the hospital finally closed in 1997, ghost hunters rushed in. One group filmed a video there, but later, when they checked the footage, they saw a nurse standing behind them the whole time, but no one saw her while filming. Tourists who enter say they feel someone breathing on their neck. They hear screaming from the old torture room. Some even see a headless soldier walking through the hallway dragging a sword. The hospital is closed now, with no trespassing signs everywhere. But brave visitors who sneak in say, "You don't find the ghosts find you." The place where children were locked in cages. In Pennsylvania, USA, there is a hospital that once held over 10,000 patients. It was called Penhurst State School and Hospital. This place was meant for people with mental and physical disabilities, but it became a nightmare factory. There weren't enough workers, so patients were chained to beds or worse, locked in small, cold metal cages like animals. Children were beaten. Some had their teeth removed so they wouldn't bite. Others were used in cruel medical tests. One nurse left a journal behind. In it, she wrote, "They scream every night. Some have stopped talking. Some don't even remember their names." The hospital shut down in 1987, but the spirit stayed. People who go inside today say they hear crying from the old children's wing. Some say they've heard tiny footsteps following them, even when they're alone. In one room, there's a mirror. Ghost hunters say if you look into it, you see yourself. But behind you is a shadowy figure, just waiting. One woman visited the asylum and saw a little girl with no eyes sitting on the floor. When she turned on her flashlight, the girl was gone, but the floor had fresh, bloody footprints. Even brave security guards refuse to patrol inside at night. They say the building is still alive and hungry. The House of Beheaded Ghosts. In Hong Kong, on High Street, there is a building that scares even the bravest people. It was once known as Sai Ying Pun Psychiatric Hospital, but locals call it the High Street Haunted House. The building was used during British rule and then taken by Japanese soldiers in World War II. What happened inside is beyond terrifying. People were beheaded here, tortured, buried under the floors. After the war, it became a mental hospital. But nurses started quitting one after another. They said, doors opened by themselves. People heard chanting in the walls. And every night at 3 a.m., the lights would flicker, and a woman in red would walk across the hallway, crying. One security guard tried to spend the night inside. At 2:47 a.m., he radioed for help, screaming. When his team found him, he was hiding under a table, eyes wide open. He said, "She asked me to find her head." The government later turned the building into an office space, but many workers refused to stay. And if you ever walk past it at night, people say you can hear heavy footsteps above you. The building has no second floor anymore. The nurses still walk at night. In Los Angeles, California, there's a hospital that once treated thousands of poor patients. It was called Linda Vista Community Hospital, but it's now known for something else. Ghosts. Back in the 1900s, the hospital had very few doctors. Many patients died from simple mistakes. Some weren't treated at all. Families would leave their loved ones and never come back. A nurse who once worked there said, "The rooms were filled with death. People cried and begged for help, but the halls just echoed. The hospital shut down in 1991, but the souls never left. Filmmakers and ghost hunters often visit. One crew member saw a nurse standing at the end of the hall. She was floating, her feet not touching the ground. When he looked again, she vanished. Another team said their camera picked up a patient on a gurney rolling past them, but no one was there. People also hear children crying in the pediatrics room. Some feel like they're being watched from behind windows with no glass. Once, a tourist visited alone. When he reached the surgery room, he heard a whisper, "Lie down, it won't hurt." He ran and never came back. Now the hospital is closed, fenced, and watched. But the ghosts? They still work night shifts. These hospitals were once places of hope. Now they're homes for the forgotten, the lost, and the dead. Sealed off, not to protect the buildings, but to protect you from what still lives inside. Would you ever dare step in? Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more real horror stories.